The sun was low on the horizon when Tomas walked through the rows of tents. The refugee camp stretched across the dusty plain like a patchwork of colors and shapes. Fabric shelters made from alien and human materials stood side by side. The camp was crowded, filled with voices that spoke in different tongues. Some voices were tired, others full of worry. The air carried the smell of cooked grain and smoke from small fires. Tomas had worked in the camp for several weeks, delivering supplies and helping with repairs. He was not a soldier, nor a leader. He was only a worker sent by his town to help keep peace between the humans and the alien refugees, who had arrived after their planet was lost in war. Tomas did not know much about these aliens. He knew only that they had been forced to flee and that most of them were still afraid. They were taller than humans, their skin pale with faint patterns like markings of stone. Their language was heavy and rough, though some had learned to speak basic human words. That evening Tomas was tired, yet something unusual reached his ears. A sound cut through the noise of the camp. It was a baby's cry. At first he thought it was human, but then he noticed the difference. The cry was higher, sharper, almost trembling like a bird's call. The sound did not stop. It went on until people around the tent began to grow restless. Tomas slowed his steps. He saw an alien woman sitting outside her tent. She held a small child wrapped in cloth. The baby's skin was softer and lighter than hers, but it carried the same faint patterns. The woman rocked the baby back and forth, whispering words Tomas could not understand. Her face showed exhaustion. Her long dark eyes glimmered with tears. The child's cries grew louder. Some of the nearby aliens covered their ears. A group of human children who had been playing in the dirt ran away from the noise. One of the older humans muttered that the child had been crying since morning. Tomas paused, his hands resting on the straps of the bag he carried. He watched as the woman tried again and again to calm her baby, but the child did not stop. He felt something stir in him. He had seen mothers in his own village struggle in the same way. Hunger, fever, fear. There were many reasons why a baby might cry, yet there was always the same helplessness in the mother's eyes. Tomas took a cautious step closer. The woman noticed him at once. She lifted her head and her gaze was sharp with warning. She pressed the baby closer to her chest. Tomas stopped where he stood, raising his hands slowly to show that he meant no harm. The baby's cries pierced the air again. The woman closed her eyes in pain. Tomas wanted to help, though he did not know how. He wondered if the child was hungry, or sick, or simply tired. Still, something urged him not to walk away. He crouched down a short distance from the tent. "It is all right," he said in a calm voice. He doubted she understood his words, but tone often mattered more than language. He tried to smile gently. "I will not harm you or the child." For a moment, nothing changed. The baby's cry rose again, sharp as before, but then the baby's eyes opened. They were brighter than the woman's, a soft shade of silver that reflected the last light of the sun. Those eyes turned toward Tomas. The crying stopped. The air grew strangely quiet. The camp seemed to pause. Tomas held still, his breath caught in his chest. The baby stared at him with wide, unblinking eyes. A small sound escaped the child's mouth, but it was no longer a cry. It was a soft coo, almost curious. The woman opened her eyes quickly, realizing the change. She looked down at her child, then up at Tomas. Her expression shifted from wariness to surprise. She rocked the baby once more, but the child remained calm, still watching Tomas. Tomas blinked. He did not know what he had done. He only sat there, confused yet strangely warmed by the silence after so much crying. Slowly, he lowered his hands to his knees. The baby's gaze did not leave him. The woman whispered in her own language. Her voice was low, questioning. Tomas shook his head gently. "I do not understand," he said. He pointed to himself. "Tomas." Then he placed his hand on his chest. The woman hesitated, then spoke softly. "Nira," Tomas nodded. "So that was her name?" He looked at the baby. "Child," he asked. He did not know if the word would mean anything, but he tried. Nira touched the baby's forehead. She spoke a short name, but it was hard for Tomas to repeat. He tried once, and she gave the smallest nod. The baby shifted in her arms, but remained calm, silver eyes still fixed on Tomas. From the other side of the camp, voices rose. A few aliens noticed the silence and came closer. One of them pointed and murmured something. Tomas could not understand, but he knew from their faces that they were surprised. Some of the humans nearby also turned to look. The child had been crying for hours, yet now it was quiet. Quiet only when looking at him. Nira held the baby tighter, as if she feared something she could not explain. Her dark eyes moved from Tomas to the gathering people, then back to him. Tomas felt the weight of the moment. It was more than a baby calming down. It was a strange bond forming before many witnesses. He stood slowly, not wanting to alarm them. "I should go," he said softly. He turned to step away, but the baby gave a small whimper, a sound close to crying again. Tomas stopped in surprise. He looked back. The baby's silver eyes searched for him, restless. When he stepped closer once more, the baby settled instantly. Nira's lips parted. She seemed caught between relief and fear. Tomas realized the truth then. The baby was not simply quiet because of luck. It had chosen him. It had stopped crying only because of him. That night, when Tomas returned to the workers' shelter, he could not sleep. His mind replayed the image of silver eyes watching him, full of a trust he had not earned. He did not know why the child felt safe with him, nor what it might mean. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning of something far greater than himself. The morning sun rose slowly over the refugee camp, painting the tents and dusty pathways in soft shades of orange and gold. The camp had not slept well. Some children had cried through the night, and adults had whispered in corners about the strange event from yesterday. But among all the camp chatter, one small family drew all attention. Nira, her baby, Nomastatnara, sat outside her tent, cradling her child in her arms. The baby was quiet, resting its head against her shoulder. Tomas approached from a distance, carrying a small bundle of cloth and food. Nira watched him pause, then stepped carefully closer. The baby's silver eyes opened and immediately focused on Tomas. The soft gurgle of delight replaced the cries that had echoed yesterday. Nira felt a strange mix of relief and caution. She had never seen her child react this way to anyone before. "Why?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Tomas shook his head, offering a gentle smile. "I do not know," he said, "but it seems the child trusts me." The baby wriggled in Nira's arms and reached a tiny hand toward Tomas. He knelt slowly, keeping his movements calm and deliberate. When the baby touched his fingers, it smiled in a way that seemed almost human, innocent but full of understanding. Nira could hardly believe her eyes. Over the next few days, a quiet pattern began to form. Tomas came to visit the family each morning. He would bring clean water, some food, and small toys he had fashioned from scraps he found in the camp. Each time he approached, the baby's cries would stop immediately. When he stayed near, the child gurgled and laughed, waving tiny hands with joy. Other aliens began to notice. At first, they were wary. Some whispered among themselves, questioning why a human should be allowed near the child. "It is unnatural," one muttered. Another shook her head and muttered in her own language. "A human cannot care for our young." Yet slowly they began to see that the bond was real. Tomas did not force anything. He did not try to hold the baby without permission. He only stood patiently, offered gentle smiles, and allowed the child to come to him. The baby seemed to sense his kindness, responding with trust that Nira could not explain. One afternoon, as the camp bustled with activity, a small crowd gathered near Nira's tent. Tomas had brought a colorful toy he had carved from a piece of wood. It was simple, a round ball with small grooves etched into it, but to the baby, it was fascinating. The child reached for it, squealing with excitement as Tomas rolled it gently toward him. Nira watched, her heart full of wonder. The baby had never laughed like this before. "See?" Tomas said softly, noticing Nira's expression. "The child is happy." Nira nodded slowly. She still felt cautious. There were many in the camp who would not understand this bond. There were rules and traditions she had grown up with. But as she watched her baby reach for Tomas, cooing and gurgling in delight, she realized she had to trust what she saw with her own eyes. Evening came, and the camp quieted down. Fires burned in small pits outside the tents, and the air grew cool. Nira rocked her baby to sleep. Tomas sat nearby, speaking softly about the work he had done that day. The baby's eyes were closed, yet its tiny hand twitched slightly whenever Tomas spoke. Over the next few weeks, the bond between Tomas and the child grew stronger. Tomas learned to understand the baby's needs. He could tell when it was hungry, when it needed rest, or when it simply wanted to be held. Nira began to rely on him. She allowed him to rock the baby when she was too tired, trusting him completely. One day, a serious moment arrived. A sickness had begun spreading through the camp. Some of the children had fevers and parents worried for their infants. Nira's baby began to fuss, showing signs of discomfort. Tomas noticed immediately. He washed his hands, checked the child's temperature, and carefully wrapped it in a clean cloth. "Do not worry," he said gently. "I will help." The baby stopped fussing when Tomas held it. Nira felt a surge of gratitude she could not put into words. She realized that in the midst of fear and illness, her child had found comfort in someone from a different world. Someone who did not belong to their people, yet who cared deeply. This bond did not go unnoticed. Some humans who came to deliver supplies were skeptical. One man frowned and whispered to another, "Why does he spend so much time with that alien child?" Tomas ignored the whispers. He knew that care was not defined by species. He had learned that in moments like these, it did not matter if someone was alien or human. What mattered was trust, patience, and kindness. The aliens in the camp slowly began to accept this truth. Some would watch quietly as Tomas held the child. Others whispered stories of the strange connection between the human and the alien baby. Nira observed all of it, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and relief. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope. One evening, a small incident tested this bond. A young alien child began crying loudly nearby. The noise startled Nira's baby, who trembled and fussed. Tomas noticed immediately. He whispered to the baby's ears, stroked its tiny arm, and hummed a tune he had learned as a child in his village. Slowly, the baby's body relaxed, and the cries stopped. Nira looked at Tomas, astonished. "How do you do it?" she asked. Tomas shook his head. "I do not know. I only know that the child trusts me. Perhaps it senses that I am not a threat." The baby reached out again, grasping Tomas' fingers with tiny hands. Nira's chest tightened with emotion. She realized that this bond was not just for comfort. It was forming a bridge between worlds. Days turned into weeks. Tomas continued to care for the baby, helping Nira in small ways. He brought water, food, and toys. He cleaned the area around their tent and even helped mend the torn fabric. Nira began to feel less burdened. She could sleep at night knowing Tomas would be there in the morning, ready to calm the child whenever it cried. The camp began to change, too. The presence of trust between Tomas and the baby encouraged others to interact more peacefully. Aliens who had avoided humans began to approach cautiously. Humans began to understand that their new neighbors were not dangerous. The small bond between one human and one alien child began to influence the entire community. One afternoon, Nira took a rare moment to speak to Tomas alone. They sat under a tree, its leaves fluttering gently in the wind. "I never thought a human could care for my child like this," she said softly. Tomas shook his head. "It is not about who I am. It is about what we do. Care, patience, and kindness." "That is enough," Nira nodded. The baby gurgled happily in her arms, turning its silver eyes toward Tomas. It reached out and touched his face lightly. He smiled, feeling a connection he had never imagined. That evening, Tomas walked back to his quarters in the camp, his heart full. He had learned something important, that trust could be formed across differences, that compassion could break barriers, and that a small act of care could change the world around him. The baby's bond with him was only the beginning. Tomas knew that challenges would come. The camp was crowded, food was scarce, and tensions were high. Yet he also knew that this small connection had the power to bring hope to many, and in that hope, Nira the child. And Tomas found the first seeds of something stronger than fear, stronger than prejudice. They found the beginnings of trust, understanding, and the quiet promise of a better future. The sun climbed higher over the refugee camp, casting long shadows across the tents and pathways. Life in the camp had settled into a fragile rhythm. Children ran through the narrow lanes, chasing one another with laughter and shouts. Adults spoke quietly in groups, trading news and supplies. Fires smoked softly outside tents where meals were prepared. Yet beneath the surface of daily activity, tension grew quietly, almost like a storm waiting to break. Nira noticed it first. Some aliens avoided her and the baby. They whispered behind hands and leaned closer to one another when Tomas approached. Nira could hear fragments of their language, sharp words carried with suspicion. The human, one said, pointing discreetly toward Tomas. Another shook her head, murmuring in agreement. Their voices carried concern, as if Tomas's closeness to the child was unnatural or dangerous. Nira felt a chill in her chest. She had not expected this. She had hoped that the bond between her child and Tomas would be accepted, or at least ignored. Instead, it became a topic for debate, worry, and unease. She held her baby closer, glancing at Tomas, who sat nearby, quietly playing with a small toy the baby had reached for. "Do they dislike you?" she asked softly, using a human word she had picked up. Tomas shook his head slowly, though a frown creased his face. "Not dislike. They are cautious. They do not understand. I cannot blame them," Nira sighed. "I wish they could see what I see. They do not know how gentle you are." "I only follow the child's lead," Tomas said. "It chooses who it trusts. That is all." But even as they spoke, tension spread farther. Human workers in the camp began to question Tomas as well. Some shook their heads and whispered to one another. "Why does he spend so much time with that alien child?" one asked. "Should he not focus on his work?" Tomas ignored them. He had learned long ago that care was not defined by who approved or disapproved. Still, their murmurs added weight to his steps. He could feel the gaze of many watching him as he walked toward Nira's tent each morning. Some humans were curious, others suspicious, some openly disapproving. Then one morning, the situation reached a tipping point. Tomas approached the tent as usual, carrying water and a small bundle of food. As he stepped closer, he noticed a group of aliens gathered nearby, their arms crossed, faces stern. They spoke rapidly among themselves, occasionally glancing at him. The baby, who had been asleep, stirred in Nira's arms. Its silver eyes opened, locking on Tomas immediately. At that moment, a young alien stepped forward. His expression was hard. "You should not be here," he said, his voice sharp. Nira flinched. Tomas kept his hands raised slightly in peace. "I only wish to help," Tomas said calmly. "I care for the child. That is all," the alien frowned. "Humans do not care for our young. You do not understand them. You will make mistakes." Tomas met the young alien's gaze evenly. "I have helped the child every day. It trusts me. I do not mean harm." Nira felt her chest tighten. She had expected some curiosity, but not confrontation. She pressed the baby closer, shielding it gently. "Please," she said. "He does not hurt. He only helps." The young alien hesitated, then glared at Tomas one last time, before turning back to the group. Some of them muttered, though their words were softer now. The tension remained, however. Nira realized that trust would not come easily. Not everyone in the camp would accept this bond. As the day went on, Nira watched the reactions around them. Some aliens continued to whisper. Some children pointed and stared. Humans on the periphery watched with curiosity, unsure what to make of the unusual connection. Even though no one openly attacked, the atmosphere carried suspicion like a heavy cloud. That evening, Nira spoke quietly to Tomas as they sat near a small fire. The baby slept in her arms, its breathing steady. "I did not expect this," she admitted. I thought it would be simple." Tomas shook his head. trust is never simple. It grows slowly, and sometimes others fear what they do not understand. Nira nodded. She had been afraid of losing her child before, but now she felt a different fear. She feared the judgments of others. The possibility that someone might try to separate her child from Tomas. Her heart ached at the thought. The next day, an incident occurred that made the tension more real. A group of aliens came to collect supplies. They passed near Nira's tent, and one of them muttered loudly enough for Tomas to hear. "A human should not touch our children. It is not natural." Tomas remained calm. "I do not touch without permission. The child chooses me." The aliens sneered. "That does not matter. Rules exist for a reason. You should stay away." Nira's heart raced. She stood up, holding her baby tightly. "The child is safe," she said firmly. "You will not harm it." The alien stared at her, then at Tomas. For a moment, the air was thick with tension. Then the alien turned away, muttering in frustration. Others followed. Yet the uneasy feeling lingered like a shadow over the camp. That evening, Nira tried to soothe her baby as usual, but the child seemed restless. Tomas noticed immediately. He knelt beside them, whispering softly, humming a tune from his village. Slowly, the baby's body relaxed. Nira watched, her eyes full of gratitude. "I do not know how you do it," she said. Tomas shook his head. "I only respond to what it feels. That is all. Fear, comfort, trust. The child shows me the way." Nira realized that he was right. The bond was not about rules or tradition. It was about understanding and care. Yet the tension of the camp reminded her that not everyone would see it that way. Over the next week, the tension grew subtly. Some aliens began to avoid Nira and Tomas. Some humans whispered doubts. The baby remained calm with Tomas, but even that small piece felt fragile under the weight of suspicion. Nira could feel eyes on her at all times, as though every movement was judged. One day, a human official arrived in the camp to check on conditions. He noticed Tomas with the baby and raised an eyebrow. "Why does a worker spend so much time with that child?" he asked sharply. Tomas remained calm. "I care for it," he said simply. The official frowned. "It is not your place. Humans should not interfere." She could see Tomas' calm resolve, but she knew that one person in authority could change everything. "The child trusts him," she said quietly. "It listens to him. It is safe." The official's expression softened slightly, but his doubt remained. He shook his head and walked away, leaving a small cloud of unease behind. Nira held her baby close, feeling the fragile nature of their peace. Despite the tension, small moments of connection continued. Tomas would bring the baby small toys, hum songs, and sit quietly while it played. The child responded with laughter and coos, silver eyes following him wherever he went. Nira began to see how much the child had come to rely on Tomas. She also realized that the bond was teaching her something important. Trust could cross boundaries, species, and fear. Even so, the tension persisted. Nira and Tomas could sense it in every whisper, every glance. The camp was a delicate balance of fear, curiosity, and hope. One wrong word or action could tip it toward conflict. One night, as the fire burned low outside their tent, Nira spoke softly. "Do you think? Will they ever understand?" Tomas looked at her, his eyes thoughtful. "Perhaps not all, but some will. And that is enough to start." The baby stirred in her arms, reaching for Tomas instinctively. Nira smiled, feeling a small wave of relief. Even in the midst of tension, there was trust. Even in the midst of fear, there was care. The following days brought more challenges. Rumors spread, questioning the bond between human and alien child. Some argued that it was dangerous. Others wondered if it was unnatural. Tomas ignored them, focusing only on the child's needs. Nira stood by him, learning to trust not just Tomas, but the quiet power of connection itself. By the end of the week, the camp began to notice that despite whispers, the child remained safe and happy. The tension did not disappear entirely, but it lessened slightly. People began to understand that this bond, strange as it was, carried no harm. Nira held her baby close that evening, looking at Tomas. "You are more than I imagined," she said quietly. Tomas smiled gently. "And you are stronger than you know." The baby gurgled happily, reaching for Toma's hand once more. In that small act, Nira saw the possibility of peace. Even amidst tension, understanding could grow. Trust could cross boundaries. And courage could rise from patience and care. Nira realized that the real test was not in calming the child for a moment. It was in facing suspicion, fear, and doubt, while holding on to that small bond. And together, she, Tomas, and the baby had begun that journey. The morning air in the refugee camp was thick with tension. The sun had barely risen, and already the sound of hurried footsteps carried across the dusty lanes. Tomas was making his usual rounds when he noticed smoke rising from the edge of the camp. At first he thought it was a cooking fire, but then he saw figures moving quickly through the haze. Their shapes were sharp and threatening. Nira was outside her tent, preparing food for her baby. She looked up and saw the same figures Tomas had noticed. Her heart skipped a beat. They were raiders, armed and aggressive, moving toward the camp with no warning. Panic spread quickly. People shouted, children screamed, and tents shook as the wind carried fear across the rows of shelters. Tomas moved immediately, his mind sharp. He ran toward Nira and her baby, weaving through the frightened camp. "Nira," he shouted, "we need to get to safety." Nira's eyes widened. She picked up her child, holding it close to her chest. "What? What is happening?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Raiders," Tomas said quickly. "They want supplies. We must protect the child." The baby stirred, sensing the alarm. Its silver eyes opened wide, scanning the chaos around them. Despite the shouting and movement, the baby did not cry. It looked toward Tomas, calm and trusting, as if it knew he would protect it. Nira felt a surge of relief, though fear still gripped her heart. Tomas reached Nira and took her hand gently. "Follow me," he said. "Stay low. We will find shelter." They moved quickly, weaving through the camp. People scattered in all directions, carrying what they could. Fires from overturned cooking pots added smoke to the already tense atmosphere. Tomas led Nira and the baby toward a cluster of large rocks at the edge of the camp. It was a small natural shelter, hidden from the main path of the raiders. As they crouched behind the rocks, Tomas looked back. Raiders were already moving among the tents, grabbing supplies and scaring the people. Some were shouting in a language Tomas did not understand. Their presence was dangerous and their intentions clear. Nira's hands shook as she held the baby. "Will they see us?" she whispered. Tomas shook his head. "Not here. Stay close. The child is safe." The baby reached out for Tomas' hand instinctively. He took it gently, holding it close. The child remained calm, silver eyes fixed on him, as though it understood the danger, but trusted him completely. Nira felt tears prick her eyes. She had never seen her child so peaceful in the face of fear. The raiders moved closer to their hiding spot. Tomas could see their sharp weapons glinting in the sunlight. Some humans and aliens were trying to resist, but they were few, and the raiders were stronger. Tomas realized that they could not stay hidden forever. They had to act. He whispered to Nira, "We must distract them. I will lead them away. You take the child and move to the other side of the rocks. Do not stop, no matter what you hear." Nira's eyes widened in alarm. "Alone? But I will be fine," Tomas said firmly. "The child's safety is the most important. Trust me." Nira nodded reluctantly. She clutched the baby tightly, moving carefully behind the rocks while Tomas stepped out into the open. He raised his hands, shouting to draw the raiders' attention. The raiders noticed immediately and moved toward him. Shouting and waving their weapons, Tomas ran swiftly, weaving through the camp to keep the raiders following him. He could hear Nira's voice calling softly in the distance, encouraging the baby to stay quiet. The child remained calm, trusting Tomas completely, as though sensing that he would protect them both. The raiders were fast, but Tomas knew the camp well. He led them through narrow paths over small ridges. and past tents in a way that slowed their progress without causing harm to anyone else. His focus was absolute. Every step, every turn had to be precise. Meanwhile, Nira moved quietly with the baby, following Tomas' plan. She kept low, ducking behind rocks and debris. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she could feel the baby's trust in her as she moved. Every coo and small gesture from the child reminded her that they were not alone. Tomas was leading them, and together they could survive. Suddenly, a raider spotted Nira and the baby. He shouted, pointing toward them. Nira froze, fear gripping her. The baby looked at her briefly, then back toward Tomas' direction. It did not cry. Tomas saw the movement and knew immediately. He spun quickly, intercepting the raider. With a few precise movements, he disarmed him, sending the weapon clattering across the ground. The raider stumbled back in surprise. Tomas did not strike further. He only moved with careful strength, protecting the baby without harming unnecessarily. The other raiders hesitated, unsure how to respond. Tomas seized the moment. He shouted to Nira, "Move. Now." Nira ran, clutching the baby. She followed the path Tomas had prepared, moving quickly but carefully. The baby's eyes remained on Tomas, silver gaze shining with trust. Nira felt a mixture of fear and admiration. She had never known a human to act with such courage and care. Tomas continued to distract the raiders, leading them farther from Nira and the baby. He used his knowledge of the camp's layout, darting between tents, climbing small ridges, and using debris to block their path. The raiders grew frustrated, their movements less organized as they struggled to keep up. Finally, Nira reached a safe area behind a cluster of rocks. She crouched low, holding the baby close. "We are safe," she whispered, though her voice shook with adrenaline. The baby cooed softly, its tiny hands reaching for her face. Nira felt relief flood through her. Despite the chaos, her child had remained calm. It had trusted Tomas completely, and that trust had saved them. Tomas finally returned to their hiding spot, breathing heavily but unharmed. "Are you both all right?" he asked, scanning the area carefully. "Yes," Nira said, holding the baby tightly. "Thanks to you," Tomas nodded, his face serious. "We are not completely safe yet. They may return. We must stay alert." For the next hours, they remained hidden, waiting for the raiders to leave. Nira watched her baby, who remained peaceful in her arms, occasionally reaching for Tomas' hand. She realized something important. The bond between Tomas and her child was not just about calmness or comfort. It was about safety, trust, and understanding. By the time the raiders finally left, camp had been damaged but was intact. Some tents were overturned, supplies scattered, but no lives were lost. Nira and Tomas emerged from their hiding place, helping others assess the damage. The camp began to recognize Tomas's bravery. Humans and aliens alike had seen how he had protected the child without causing unnecessary harm. Whispers of admiration spread. Some of those who had been suspicious now looked at him with respect. Nira looked at Tomas, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You risked everything," she said softly. Tomas shook his head. It was not risk. It was care. "That is all," the baby gurgled happily, reaching for Tomas once again. Nira smiled, realizing that even amidst danger, trust and courage could shine brighter than fear. That night, as the camp settled, fires burning softly and people whispering about the day's events, Nira sat with her baby in her arms. Tomas sat nearby, sharing what little food they had salvaged. The baby slept peacefully, its silver eyes closing in trust. Nira realized that the danger they had faced was more than physical. It had tested the trust and bond between them. It had shown her that Tomas' presence was more than helpful, it was essential. The child's calm, the people's admiration, and the sense of safety were all tied to his courage and care. She looked at Tomas and whispered, "You are more than I imagined." He smiled gently. "And you are stronger than you know. Together, we can face more than this camp can throw at us." The baby stirred, reaching for Tomas instinctively. Nira felt hope fill her heart. Even in the midst of chaos, trust could guide them. Care could protect them. and courage, even from one human among many aliens, could change everything. The night passed quietly. For the first time since the arrival at the camp, Nira felt a sense of peace. She knew the bond they shared was not ordinary. It had survived fear, danger, and doubt. It had grown stronger, proving that even in the harshest conditions, care and trust could create safety, hope. And understanding Nayar held her child close, feeling the small heartbeat against her chest. Tomas rested nearby, alert but calm. The camp was still tense, still fragile, but something had shifted. A new respect had begun to form between humans and aliens. And at the center of it, the child's trust had become a bridge between worlds. Nira realized that the real strength of the bond was not just in calming a baby. It was in showing courage when it mattered most, in acting with care, and in trusting one another even when fear surrounded them. And in that understanding, she, Tomas, and the child had begun something far greater than safety. They had begun hope. The morning sun rose gently over the refugee camp. Birds called from the sparse trees at the edges, and the soft smell of smoke from small fires filled the air. After the attack by the raiders, the camp was quieter than usual. People moved slowly, still recovering from the fear and chaos of the previous day. Some tents had been damaged, and supplies were missing, but no one had been hurt. A sense of relief mixed with lingering caution. Nira sat outside her tent holding her baby. The child slept peacefully in her arms, silver eyes closed, small chest rising and falling with every breath. Tomas approached slowly, carrying a small bundle of clean cloth and a few pieces of food he had gathered. His presence was calm and reassuring, as always. The baby stirred and opened its eyes the moment it saw him. The soft coo of recognition was enough to make Nira smile, despite the exhaustion on her face. "Good morning," Tomas said gently. "The camp is quiet now. Everyone is safe." Nira nodded. "Thanks to you," she said. Her voice carried both gratitude and awe. "I do not know how we would have survived yesterday without you." Tomas shook his head. "It was not me alone. It was care and trust." The child stayed calm. "You stayed calm. Together, we faced it." The baby reached for Tomas instinctively, gripping his fingers with tiny hands. Nira felt a deep warmth in her heart. She realized again that the bond between her child and Tomas was something extraordinary. It was not just comfort or play. It was trust, understanding, and courage, formed in the smallest gestures and the quiet moments of care. In the days that followed, the camp began to change. Humans and aliens who had once watched Tomas with suspicion now looked at him with respect. Whispers turned to conversations, and conversations slowly became cooperation. Children from both species played together without fear, sometimes laughing as the baby crawled after them, giggling and reaching for familiar hands. Nira noticed the shift in people's attitudes. The story of Tomas protecting the child during the raid spread throughout the camp. Some humans had doubted him, and some aliens had mistrusted him, but now both sides saw what he had done. Not a single unnecessary blow had been struck. No child had been harmed, and yet the raiders had been kept at bay. It was a demonstration of courage that inspired others. One afternoon, Nira and Tomas were walking through the camp together. The baby was perched on Nira's hip, looking around curiously. People smiled and nodded as they passed, showing respect in small ways. Some of the aliens approached cautiously at first, but then spoke softly to Nira, asking questions or offering small gestures of friendship. "You have changed things," Nira said quietly to Tomas. "Even after the raiders, the camp feels different." Tomas looked down at the child, who reached out for him instinctively. "It is not only me. It is trust. It is care." The child showed everyone what is possible, and you have guided it and protected it. "That matters," Nira smiled, feeling a new sense of confidence. She realized that she had doubted herself for too long. Her child's trust in her and Tomas had created a bridge between species. Fear and suspicion had begun to fade, replaced by understanding and cooperation. That evening, a small gathering took place near the central fire of the camp. Leaders from both humans and aliens came together. There was quiet conversation. And then a representative from the alien side spoke. "We have watched the human help the child," the alien said. "We have seen courage, patience, and care. The child is safe. No harm has come. We have learned something." The human representative nodded. "It is rare to see such understanding. He has shown that care and courage cross boundaries. We must respect that." Nira held her baby tightly, watching Tomas as he stood quietly, listening to the words of both leaders. The baby stirred, reaching for Tomas instinctively. He smiled and held its tiny hand gently, showing care without dominance. The representatives continued. "Trust is not limited by species," the alien said. "We will allow humans and aliens to work together more freely. We will protect each other and the children." There was murmuring of agreement, and slowly the camp seemed lighter. Suspicion and fear had not disappeared completely, but a seed of understanding had taken root. Nira looked around, seeing families from both sides sharing food, playing together, and speaking in softer tones. She felt hope rise within her. That night, Nira sat with her child outside the tent. The stars sparkled above, distant and peaceful. Tomas joined her, sitting quietly beside them. The baby gurgled happily, stretching its tiny hands toward him. Nira smiled. "You have done more than I imagined," she said softly. "Not only for us, but for everyone." Tomas shook his head. "It is not me alone. Care can change things. Small acts of kindness can change lives. The child shows us all what is possible." Nira held her baby close, feeling the steady heartbeat against her chest. She realized that the bond they shared was more than protection or comfort. It was the beginning of something new, a world where humans and aliens could understand one another, where trust and courage were stronger than fear and prejudice. Over the following weeks, the camp became more cooperative. Humans and aliens shared tasks, repaired tents together, and helped one another gather food and water. Tomas continued to help Nira care for her child, teaching others simple ways to calm and comfort infants. The baby laughed and played, silver eyes bright with curiosity, becoming a symbol of hope for the entire camp. One afternoon, Nira and Tomas walked to the edge of the camp. The sun was high, casting a warm light over the tents and pathways. Children played nearby, humans and aliens together, laughing freely. Nira looked at the baby, who reached out instinctively for Tomas' hand, and felt a sense of peace she had never known before. "We have done something good here," Nira said softly. "Something bigger than ourselves." "Ah!" Tomas nodded. "Yes, and it will continue. Trust spreads. Care spreads. Courage spreads. This is just the beginning." The baby cooed happily, reaching for both of them. Nira smiled, realizing that this child, so small and fragile, had changed everything. It was not just a bond between her and Tomas. It was a bond that had inspired an entire community. It was proof that understanding and compassion could cross worlds that evening. The camp gathered around the central fire once again. People spoke quietly, sharing stories of the day, of the past weeks, and of what they had learned. Tomas and Nira sat together, the baby resting peacefully in her arms. Leaders and families alike listened as stories of courage, care, trust were told. Nira felt a sense of completeness she had never experienced. The baby's silver eyes sparkled in the firelight, reflecting the warmth and hope around them. She realized that the real strength of the bond was not only in calming a baby, it was in showing courage, kindness, and understanding in the face of fear. Tomas looked at her, smiling gently. "We have done something more than keeping safe. We have built a bridge, and that bridge will last." The baby reached out for Tomas once more, smiling and cooing. Nira felt her heart swell. Together, they had faced fear, suspicion, and danger. Together, they had created something stronger than either species alone could achieve, as the stars twinkled above the camp. Nira held her child close, Tomas sitting beside them. She realized that understanding and trust could overcome any challenge. The bond they shared was not just for the moment. It was a promise of hope, a living proof that care and courage could shape a better world. And in that promise, Nira, Tomas, and the baby found something extraordinary, a future where humans and aliens could live together, protect one another, and learn from the smallest acts of trust and compassion. The camp was quiet now, not with fear, but with the sound of life, laughter, and the soft coos of a child who had changed everything. Nira looked up at the stars, then down at her baby and whispered, "We will face the future together." Tomas nodded, holding the baby's tiny hand gently. "Together," he agreed. The night settled peacefully over the camp. Fires burned softly, people rested, and the bond of trust between a human and alien mother and her child became a symbol for everyone that care, courage, and understanding could change the world. One small step at a time, Nira felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew that there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew that the bond they shared was stronger than fear. It was a bond that could inspire others, protect the innocent, and build a world where hope, trust, and courage always triumphed. And in that moment, as the baby slept peacefully in her arms and Tomas sat beside them, Nira understood the true power of care, trust, and human courage. The future was uncertain, but it was bright, and together they would face it.